In this video we're going to look at different types of subordinate clauses. We will see that there are complement clauses, subject clauses and different types of clauses that function as adjuncts. When we start with complement clauses, the name says what they are. They are complements of different word categories. And we can find complement clauses which are complements of verbs, nouns, adjectives and prepositions. So complement of a verb is something like he said that he liked it. So saying involves something that is said, and the content of that can be expressed in a clause, that he liked it. A complement can also be a complement of a noun, so something like the realization that all was lost hit him suddenly. So here the content of what the realization was about is expressed in a clause, that all was lost. You can also have a complement clause which is the complement of an adjective, so something like she is very eager to work with you. Now this is, we haven't come across this really in terms of a clause, but what you've got here, to work with you, is actually a non-finite subordinate clause. You can think, if we put a subject in, it makes it a little bit easier to recognize. So you could say something like, she is very eager for John to work with you. So for John to work with you is very similar to that John will work with you. The only difference is that there is no finite verb. It's an infinitival clause, a non-finite clause. Okay, the last type of complement clause is where the complement is a complement of a preposition. So something like, I've been thinking about what you said to me. Now what you said to me, you said something to me. It's another subordinate clause. What you see is that there is a WH word here that's actually moved to the front, but the whole thing is a subordinate clause. You can also have subject clauses, and again the name tells you what they are. They are clauses that function as subjects. So an example of that is, for you to leave before breakfast would not be a good idea. So what would not be a good idea? And the answer is for you to leave before breakfast. So this whole subordinate clause plays the role of subject in this sentence. Another example is this one, that she knows her stuff is obvious. What is obvious? That she knows her stuff. So that whole clause, that she knows her stuff, is the subject in this sentence. Now you can see that both subjects start with a complementizer, for and that signals to you that it's the start of a subordinate clause, because remember, main clauses can't start with a complementizer. So the moment that you see a complementizer at the beginning of a sentence, that you know that actually what you're going to have is a subject clause rather than a noun phrase. Okay, now we also have clauses that function as adjuncts, and we've got two types. We've got relative clauses and adverbial clauses. Because relative clauses we've already come across before, and we know that they occur inside noun phrases to give you more information about the head noun, and there are two subtypes. You've got restrictive relative clauses, which are needed to assign reference. Something like, the book that won the prize is very witty. So that won the prize is the relative clause, and you need it there to help you identify which book is being talked about. Now the other type of relative clause is a non-restrictive relative clause, and that gives extra information. It's like an aside. So you could say, that book which won the prize is very witty. Remember, you get a very different intonation. Okay. You have to be careful, because if you take this sentence, the story that he read in the newspaper was totally unbelievable. That he read in the newspaper is, of course, the relative clause here. You can leave out the relative pronoun here if it is the direct object in the subordinate clause. So you can say the story he read in the newspaper was totally unbelievable. Yeah, and if you think about the relative pronoun there, yeah, the subordinate clause, you know, if you put it back in, would be he read that in the newspaper. Oh, in the newspaper. Sorry, left out the there. Okay. The last type of subordinate clauses are adverbial clauses, and they are, real adjuncts. They give answers to questions such as how, when, where, and why. And there's things like I read it twice because it was very good. Yeah, we'll go there when he is old enough. Yeah, so they're like adjuncts, which are phrases, but here they're just whole clauses. Okay, let's look at this one. The man who answered the door looked like Frankenstein. What does that it contains a subordinate clause, and which one is it? Is it a complement clause, subject clause, relative clause, adverbial clause? Well, let's look where it is. You've got, what's the main clause? Well, you've got two finite verbs. You've got answered and looked. Now, if you try and form the subject question with answered, you get who answered the door looked like Frankenstein. That's not a good question, so let's try it with looked. Who looked like Frankenstein? Aha, who looked like Frankenstein? And the answer is the man who answered the door. Yeah. Okay, so looked is the finite verb of the main clause. Now then you've got the man who answered the door, that's the subject. Now what's the head? Oh, the head is man, and then you get who answered the door. So there's a subordinate clause inside the noun phrase, yeah, the subject noun phrase. So a subordinate clause inside the noun phrase must be a relative clause. And there it is, yeah. Okay, how about this one? Sue went for a run before classes started in the morning. Okay, so you've got Sue, the main event is that Sue went for a run, and then you get this clause before classes started in the morning, which tells you when she went for a run. Yeah, and of course that's additional information. Yeah, so it answers the when question, so it's an adverbial clause. Yeah. That she had failed the exam upset Sue a lot. Okay, now again we've got two finite verbs here, had and upset, but when you look, the sentence starts with that, and that should and then you should be alert. Yeah, is there a clause following that? Well, there is. She had failed the exam. So now main clauses can't start with a complementizer, so that indicates to you that there must be a subject clause. So do the test. What upset Sue a lot? And the answer is that she had failed the exam. Yeah, so that's a subject clause. I hope that you will all have a lovely Christmas and a wonderful New Year. What have we got here? You start with, I hope something, and the something is that you will all have a lovely Christmas and a wonderful New Year. And of course, that it comes with hope. It tells you what I hope, and so that is a complement clause.